Welcome back to another episode of Kicking It with Coach Red, where we bring you all the news, stories, takes, and opinions about your favorite teams from the Pacific North. Fresh from the good to the bad to the Mariners.
The sweet, sweet Mariners, baby.
Mariners, regardless of what they did earlier this week, that warrants an episode because they finally signed a free agent hitter. We were going to be
Yes.
talking about the Mariners regardless in this episode. Cain wants to do what everyone else does. He just wants to be a lemming, a little follower, and just
He
poo
won't be
poo
mad.
all over the Mariners. And I'm going to let him do it just a little bit, but we're going to do something a little bit different than I think some other people are doing. We're going to look at this team with our projected opening day 26-man roster with where the team sits right now and go position groups for the outfield, starters, relievers, and then around the infield. We're going to look at those positions individually. We're going to omit DH because I don't think there's a full time DH on this team. I think it's going to be spread out enough. And we'll let you know whether we think that that group is below league average, at league average, or above league average, and then round it out with do we think with the Mariners, how they sit today, are a playoff team. And there's no maybes on that. We have to give a definitive yes or no. But before we do that, why don't I tell you a little bit about us? If you're looking for a guy that thought up this whole idea, and I'm going to be like Charlie in the Chocolate Factory, Willy Wonka's here, and I'm going to sit there and I'm going to give out free candy. I'm going to give out free thoughts. There's going to be some good things. Some people might get hurt, but you know what? No lawsuits. If you're looking for a guy like that, you're looking for a guy like me, your boy, Coach Red. You can find me on X, The Real Coach Red, on Instagram at The Real underscore Coach Red, TikTok at The Real Coach Red. Also, find the show over on YouTube. Search Kicking It with Coach Red. Like, subscribe, hit the bell notifications, and leave a comment or two. And if you're looking for a guy, we'll call him Slugworth. We're going right back to Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. He's the fake rival, but probably real in real life. And he's going to sit there and he's going to be negative and he's going to be scary and hide your wives, hide your kids, because he's trying to scare everybody up here and going to be a real negative Nancy. And his name is Cain.
That's right. My name is Kane. You can find me over on Twitter at Kane2406. TikTok, possibly not much longer, but Kane0624. Also follow the show's socials over on Twitter and Instagram at Coach Red Pod. Pause. Do it, freaking do it.
The Mariners have made a move. They have signed Donovan Solano, utility guy, primarily slots into the third base slot. He's 37 years old. It's a guy that is high batting average, which is
Last four
something.
years have been 260 or above.
Yeah, I think last year was even 280. So
Yeah.
he's a higher average guy. Doesn't play every day. It's getting older. Not a lot of power. But they call him Donnie Barrels.
They do, but it just fits in the stigma that it's the same kind of signing that they make every year, right? It's a guy who's fit well and then doesn't translate to the to when they're on the Mariners. Hopefully, it's different.
I'll say that a lot of the guys that they've got were kind of already on the downward trend. Like
Sure,
Polanco had been sliding a little bit, Frazier, uh,
Wong.
Cole Wong, that kind of infielder that's kind of regressed. And yes, with Josh Rojas, you had a bunch of outs above average. It was criminal that he wasn't even a finalist for a Gold Glove. But when you look at the raw hitting statistics, Josh Rojas had more games and had a little bit more WAR attributed to him, a lot because of his defense. But
Yeah,
home runs were comparable. His on base percentage is higher. So basically, you were slotted to pay Rojas 4 to 5, and Arb you get Solano in for three and a
three.
half. save a little bit of money.
Plus you criminally stole in arbitration. I mean, you got at least 4 or 5 mil out of that.
Yeah, and I think a lot of those RBIs, their numbers are going to really jump up next year because I think
Sure.
some of the stuff like Cal's awards and Gilbert's All Star wasn't factored in this year. It'll be factored into years after this. So
Mhm.
you're going to see those guys jump up unless they're able to commit to them long term before then. But
Fingers
that's
crossed.
yet to be seen. But
Yeah.
with this Donovan Solano, it's a name that's been floated around by Mariners fans for a couple of years. But I don't necessarily love is he is a cheap option and he's a guy that continues to hit, but the batting average is something we've been pining for. Getting on base, this is a guy that hit primarily fifth in the Padres lineup, which is a good offensive lineup. But this is a guy that's been on 5 teams in 5 years. And with a guy with that type of hit tool, it's kind of like Luis Arez, right? Where
Yeah.
he's a singles maven and you look at that batting average and you get some twinkles in your eyes, but does that lead to runs? And I think that with the way the Mariners are constructed and the overall athletic ability on this team and speed on this team, I think he's going to be able to up that RBI amount, especially if there's anyone on in front of him. Because the only guy on in front of him that might not be a speed maven is 5 stolen base Cal Raleigh.
Hey, dude, Cal's got some wheels for a catcher. Let's be honest here.
Yeah, but Randy Robles,
Yeah.
Julio, JP, Demo, Ryan Bliss, a handful of other people that we'll start breaking down here in a little bit. Like it's a very athletic, and I think that you're going to see them lean on taking a bag more to putting more pressure on the opposing team this year
Yeah.
as compared to years past. Because you even saw an uptick in stolen base attempts when Dan Wilson took over as manager.
Yeah. Yeah.
All
All
right, do you
right.
want to be negative now?
Yeah, I want to go on my little tirade real quick. All right, free agency has been horrendous for them. Them trying to sign anybody has been just abysmal, right? They had an offer for Carlos Santana for more money, more years, and he turned it down to stay with Cleveland for less. Granted, he was cleared out his house, whatever, circumstances align and all, but you lost out on that.
I think if I'm
You
being honest, I think that, and this is just me, I think the
Fair?
total dollars were more, but I don't think it was a more per average. I think you were looking at him making them offering a 2 year 12 or 2 year 14 to be
Mhm.
6 or 7 mil a year, and he got 10 from the
Yeah.
Guardians.
And it's tough. You've missed out on quite a few bats, acquirable bats, or trade talks have fallen apart left and right. I think the worst thing about this entire offseason, you didn't even get a meeting with Roki Sasaki and Jerry DePoto quote, is it's not something we've been preparing for months. It's something we've been preparing for years. And you can't even get a meeting. Like you have a guy that is about to go into the Hall of Fame as a Mariner that is a Japanese born player. Arguably one of the greatest Japanese players of all time in Ichiro Suzuki, right? That's a big sell point, but also you had the horrendous ending of Yusei Kikuchi, and that kind of probably turned some people away too.
I
It's
don't
just
think,
wild.
I don't like, yes, I know that it wasn't pretty at the end, but I don't think that they handled anything crazily, right? You say was a all-star and then absolutely fell off the table. Like you couldn't count on him. They didn't pitch him down the stretch. And it's not like the Mariners cut him. He decided not to pick up his player option, which I think every single Mariners fan was ecstatic about because of that drop off, and he wasn't
Yeah.
able to be as consistent as possible. I don't know how the handling of them skipping him over in a start when his previous 3 starts, if this was a guy that was not from Japan, this would be a non-starter. It's not like you would be sitting there saying like, "Oh, guys from America, they really didn't like that Tyler Anderson got pushed over down the stretch for the Mariners." Yeah, if I'm a free agent pitcher, I'm never going there.
Yeah. I don't know. It's weird. They've kind of missed out on a couple guys in the signing periods. It's just kind of weird, right? With how this team has been with Japanese players.
Correct. And it'll be interesting because they made offers at those types of guys in the past, whether that is something that they'll get back into. And I know that Ichiro has his role on this team, being around the team all the time. And obviously, you would assume that they're utilizing him and his talents to help acquire talent as well. But I do think that maybe having him be the lead liaison going forward for just being like, this is our international liaison, and you don't
Yeah.
just put it to, you know, Japan, China, Korea, all that kind of stuff. You expand that out because there are probably some guys in the Venezuela, Dominican Republic, Cuba that do know who Ichiro Suzuki is, and having
Yep.
that guy show up to one of those towns, I think, could be something that
I
would be
fully
great.
agree with that. They really need to get back on, like, the other international signings have been tremendous. That you've gotten out of the Dominican Republic and Venezuela and all of those places, right? It has been amazing. I mean, Lazaro Montes, what happened today, right? Uh Yager, I believe, the number 9 guy or number 6 guy
Six.
in the pool, right? And
And
then
then
you got
another
the
top
number
20
20
shortstop.
shortstop. Like,
Yeah.
hell yeah, that's cool. But like getting that Japanese market too, like those guys are also studs and they're ready to play now.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the thing that and free agency as a whole has been just horrendous.
It's
It's
been
not been
frustrating
good.
for
Yeah,
sure. I When you look at some of the guys that have went on these deals, right? Yes, you've had Soto going this one,
sure.
Christian Walker. You know, if you were really banking your whole offseason plan on 40 plus year old Carlos Santana, I think there's something a little bit more wrong with the entire front office. There are some guys that are still out there and available where if the Mariners do want to make a move, there are a couple of names, that are sitting out there that are high profile free agents that aren't getting the deals they want. You could look at a shorter term deal for some of those guys, and those guys being Alex Bregman, pass, no, no,
Yeah,
no, no, and Pete Alonso. So
yeah.
there's
And
still,
apparently the Mariners have been linked to Pete Alonso, and I don't believe that's true. I don't believe it.
but then you look at some of the trades, like Gavin Lux, and people getting frustrated about these
Yeah.
different deals where I'm like, I don't think you wanted to make those deals anyways. You just wanted to make a deal. And the only guy that is kind of not a huge name that did get traded that I wish the Mariners would have been able to acquire, but it was in division, was Nathaniel Lowe. Like, I like him a ton at first base. And I think he's way better than Jake Berger. And they shipped him out for nothing, but they weren't going to do that in division.
All right. My little rant and tirade is over. I just had to get that off my chest.
Okay. Well, now we are going to dive into position groups. And fortunately or unfortunately, however you want to look at it, we're going to look at it how I laid it out in a text message to Kane because I don't want to jump around and lose my spot. So simple as that. We're going to start off. Well, I'll tell you the position group and then who I believe is sitting in that position group. You can disagree with me. If there's some guys that I omitted, please let us know and who you would take out and who you would put in. That's what social media is for. So you can do that if you so choose. So this one's a tough one. We're starting off with starting pitchers and the 5 starters that, as the team sits right now, we see on this opening day roster are Luis Castillo, Logan Gilbert, George Kirby, Bryce Miller, Brian Wu.
Woohoo. Big song go
So
out.
the big question is We can debate. Some of these are going to be a little bit more clear cut. Some of them are going to take some debating, but we will have to come to a consensus on whether we think they are below league average, at league average, or above league average.
Oh,
Starting pitchers, Kane, what do you think?
I think they're going to be even above, like above average. They're going to be above that
Yeah,
because
this
they
is
is the best
ESPN.
starting five in the league.
ESPN had this as the number one rotation in baseball with the Phillies coming in second. And I think that when you look at Wu and Miller at the five, like these guys, this whole their whole starting five is 16th or better odds to win the Cy Young in the American League. Your entire staff is basically in the top 15.
Yeah.
That is bonkers. They did say, yeah, there's not a ton of extra depth behind there because Emerson Hancock is your next guy up. But I was talking to you before the podcast. If Emerson Hancock is my five, I'm totally fine with that because he's a number five starter. It's what he is.
Yeah. We're all lucky to have the rotation that we have.
Yeah. So that is an easy above league average for the starting staff.
Yes.
All right. Now we're going to go to the relievers. For the relievers, we have Andres Munoz, Matt Brash, Santos, Gregory, Snyder, Colin, Sauce, no other name given, Gabe Spire, Trent Thornton, and Troy Taylor. This one, as a person that follows the Mariners, was kind of tougher to put together. I think there were a lot of guys that were locks. Do I think that Thornton is a lock right now? No.
No.
Are Santos and Brash going to be 100% healthy when we start? Probably. Are, yeah, Sauce, Spire, Thornton are kind of three guys that could be in limbo. You have some DFA guys that you picked up that have a grand total of 8 major league innings. You've got Vargas that you traded for last year. You've got uh Cowser, who we got from
Oh
Braves, who was
yeah.
looking really good in spring training. So that's kind of the place where you can see that fluctuation. And they always kind of find a non-roster invitee. But with the innings that Thornton has done and his ability to move up and down in the leverage spots, same with Spire, same with Sauce. That's why they make this. I think that Snyder, with what he did last year, is 100% on the opening day roster.
Oh, 100%.
Troy Taylor, same thing with his ascension. Matt Brash, if he's healthy, is one of the best setup men in the game. And throwing in Gregory Santos, where you can rest up and you can run all three of those guys to get you save opportunities when you include Munoz. So
Yeah.
their highest leverage arms are above average to really good, I think. Some of
Yeah.
your lower guys make it a little bit tougher. Where do you land on where
I
the bullpen sits?
I think that pitching is really going to be the biggest saving grace of the season, right? Starters need to go deep. Your bullpen's got to get it done. I think they're going to have an above average season. They have to, and once you get Brash dialed back in,
And
it's
Gregory Santos, we haven't seen
yeah,
him at his best.
right. And again, as you said, Carlos Vargas too. Like I would love to see him up at some point, but I think that this how it sits right now is an above league average bullpen.
I think it also is above average because even with Troy Taylor has potential to be a late inning high leverage guy as well.
Yes.
You legitimately have four guys on this team that I think most teams would feel comfortable with them closing out games. The
Yes.
only detractor is they're relatively young and not a ton of experience in that position, right? Outside of Munoz, Brash has had a couple of run-ins with the ability to get saved. Same with Santos, Troy Taylor in the minors, but not in the bigs really. Have they got him? Sure, but they're not being counted on to do that every day. Those all four of those guys have the stuff to do there. And if you have Snyder, who was a revelation last year, which who knows if that sticks up. But when you have some guys that have been on this team for a little bit, that can eat innings and usually don't hurt you too bad, I think that's above average because I've seen a lot
Yes.
of these bullpens that we see where it's like night in, night out, they're blowing leads, right? And the Mariners, I think, did a pretty good job of maintaining the leads that they had last year.
Yes. I just they have to be at a different level this year. All in all, I think they're gonna have a better year than they had last year.
All right, now we go to position groups. We're going to start in the infield and work our way out. We're starting behind the dish, and that is Cal Raleigh and Mitch Garver. Where would you put them in the scale of below, at, or above league average?
I also think this is going to be above league average for the simple fact of Cal Raleigh. Statistically proven, Mitch Garver bounces back after a bad year, so that can only help. I don't think he's going to be as bad as he was last year, so anything better than that, I think this catcher group is going to be above league average.
Yeah, and when you look at this, Cal Raleigh is going to catch a majority of games. I'm slotting Garver in at this spot instead of bringing up another guy from the minors because he doesn't give you enough value to carry a third catcher on this team with
Right,
his stick with what he showed last year.
right.
Mitch Garver, even if you slot him into extra catching duty, the numbers that he put forth are not terrible for most catchers in the league, right?
Yeah.
But the Mariners do have Cal Raleigh. And I know that people are coming out with their charts on where they put people. And Cal Raleigh is a top two catcher, and he's not two.
Yeah,
He's number one.
yeah.
He silver slugger. The guy's hit more home runs by a catcher since he came into the league. He's platinum glove winner. Like the guy owns the staff. He's got the clutch gene. He's gonna play 80+% of the games. This is a well above average position group for me as well.
Yes, yes, 100%.
So I'm gonna when we get to this next one, I didn't have people listed at multiple positions. I have these people listed as where they will be primary positions when it comes to the infield. So we can't group guys that we think are going to split time between multiple positions, or else Demo would have factored into most spots around this infield. So we're going to
Yes.
go to first base. I have one person here, and that is Luke Raley. Where does Luke Raley slot in
Uh,
for MLB first basemen? Below, at, or
uh,
above league average?
I wanted to be at average so bad against righty, sure, sure, but with if Edgar and Seisler can just get him right against lefties, right? He can be an average hitter, and that's really all we need. I I, I think he's going to be below average. I really do. It's just if he's the only guy playing first for the majority of the year, it's gonna be tough, right? Having to see him go against lefties and not be taken out.
You said that you want him to be at average for you.
I do,
Let
but
me
I
try.
just don't.
Let me try to convince you.
Sure, dude.
All
Sure,
right,
please do, because I love Nuke Rayleigh. He was a fun little spice last year.
Luke Raley last year going into the season I had very high hopes for him. He didn't get a lot of play time early on. There were
Mhm.
injuries that factored in that ended up giving him his play time, and it took him a little bit to get going. He is another guy that is a clutch hitter in the
Yes,
vein of Cal, big hits and big moments. He's also a guy that actually hit better at T-Mobile than he did on the road. So
fair.
that brings me to this spot. when he's going to be getting more consistent at bats, because I think it was a little bit of a weird year for him. He's not only not playing at the beginning, then he's playing some first base and all three outfield spots. Then he gets asked to move to first base after the Ty France releasing. And this is a guy that first year on the team, obviously you can tell that he's bonded with the guys, but there were a lot of moving pieces going on. I think when he comes to spring training, you steal all of his other gloves. He only gets first baseman's glove, and
Yeah.
he gets his suite at where they're staying is right next door to Berry Hill, and they're hanging out every single day. And on the other side of him is Edgar. So I think that against righties, he is going to be a guy that is going to be above average. I do
Sure.
think against lefties, he's going to be below average.
So it equals out to
I'm
average.
not done yet. He's also extremely athletic. And I think that if you take the position moving away from him and you can have him focus primarily on first base, because even the last handful of years, he might have gotten a little play there, but he was primarily in the outfield. So
Yeah.
being able to put him back at a spot and have him focus on that, this is a guy you could tell works his tail off. And I
Yes.
think that you're going to be surprised with him as an everyday starter. Yes, they have been going after things. Does this throw them out of the running from potentially bringing back uh Justin Turner? I don't think it does, right?
Right.
But I think if they went into the season where you might have Solano that fills in for him a little bit, Demo in a pinch, right? Potentially Garver starts putting on a first baseman's glove as well. You know, sure. But I think if you feel comfortable enough with Luke Rayleigh to go into the season with him being your primary first baseman. And I think if you feel
Mhm.
that way, he's at league average.
Sure. Well, we can go with that. I don't know how many below league averages we're gonna have.
How many
I
below?
I could see one on the
I
list,
got a couple.
possibly two,
I
possibly
mean,
two.
all right, let's go to second base. What I have for the opening day roster here is Dylan Moore and Ryan Bliss. Kane, where do they factor in?
I mean, they got to be average, right? They really do, because what they can also do on the base pass. Dylan Moore is a Gold Glove defender. He does have his spurts of going hot, but we've also seen Ryan Bliss just make unreal plays at second base. And when that stick is going and he's stealing bags, it's awesome. I don't know if they can keep that up for a whole 162. I believe that they're just going to be league average.
Second base is a tough position because I think if you look around the league, when you look at people that you would put into elite or extremely good, the second basemen aren't really catching your eye, right? There's a handful of guys out there. So it's not the highest bar to pass. Defensively, sure, I can give that to him, but I would say that most guys across the league, they're not pouring it in offensively from second base. So their moniker is also going to be doing it with the glove, right? I would say that this is slightly below league average. I think that it's extremely close. You know my affinity for Dylan Moore.
Oh,
I
sure.
mean, Demo is my dude. And I love the profile that you get with Ryan Bliss as well. But when Demo is a very streaky guy, and I think that's kind of best where he can bounce around a little bit. He's the guy I think that's the exact opposite of Luke Rayleigh. Him mixing it up, I think actually helps him more.
Yeah.
Um, and with him, he's gonna get a lot more consistent play time than he's got. He got quite a bit last year, but that was due to injuries. For him
Yes.
being locked in, he's gonna primarily play
Second or third.
second or third, and then he'll give JP his days off, right?
Or
Actually,
Leo Rivas. Wow.
we haven't even got to shortstop, so don't spoil anything. So, with that being said, Bliss did not have the best average when he was up. Demo, not the best average. These guys are a little bit of lightning in a bottle. Like you said, they can get very streaky. Ryan Bliss is a menace. He stole 70 bases in minor leagues last year. Dylan Moore was near the top. I think he was top 30 for the Mariners in stolen bases.
Yeah.
So both of them can affect games, and both of them have raw power for their diminutive statures. Like
Yes.
the amount of power that they have for the size of bodies they have is bananas.
Like when Ryan Bliss hit that when he hit his first home run in Kansas City. Oh boy.
Demo going upper tank
Yeah.
against the
You know,
Astros.
I guess we haven't had enough of a sample size of Ryan Bliss because he only played in like really let's say like 30 games last year.
If that.
Yeah.
That's
I
why I'm
mean
gonna that's why I'm
they
gonna put him
sat
as
him when he got
slightly
hot, so
I put them as slightly below average.
sure.
I think that's where they're at right now. I think they have a ceiling to basically move past the league average and be like I think they're just on the backside of league average. And I think
Mm,
if they both get hot and have good seasons, they could be on the front side of league average.
sure, sure. I'll go with that.
All right. Our next position is shortstop, and there's no Leo Rivas here. It is just J.P. Crawford.
This one for
Where do you have
me,
him?
he's got to get it out. He's got to have an average year. I
He's
think
gotta or he is.
I think he'll be average this year. We're not gonna get what we got 2 years ago from him. I know that. Uh, just more consistent, more getting on base this year. It's what he needs. He needs to have a little bit of a bounce back. I mean, he is a gold glover as well, right? What he does in the field, you and I have just had our jaws on the floor many, many a times, right? Um, and what he can do with the stick when he's healthy, when his mind's there, like the dude has been awesome. Last year regressed a lot, had a very, very, very poor season,
Well, he had a
and
lengthy injury stint.
injuries stint too. Yeah, you're right. But I do believe that JP Crawford will be average among shortstops this year.
I've got him slotted as kind of like I have the second baseman is slightly below average. The reason being is 2 years ago he did have his best year ever. And although the RBI numbers I think were good, the raw power numbers weren't there. Um, but when you look at the shortstops that are currently in the major league or on
Um,
the cusp, right? There's been a big
yeah,
influx of use, like Bobby Witt. You've got Gunnar Henderson, right?
right.
These are all
Carlos,
guys that
he's
are ratcheting up the game, and then you still have your blue bloods of your Francisco Lindors of the world, your
Carlos Correa.
Corey Seager, right?
Yeah,
So with that, with JP coming off of a down year, I think he is going to be motivated. But I think going into the year that he is below the league average for shortstops.
fair.
Can he get there? Easy. He's done
Sure.
it before. I think that even 2 years ago, I think when you looked at his WAR put him at like top five shortstops in the league. And I think he has the ability to do that. But when you look, like I said, that influx of young talent that is patrolling around shortstop right now gives me pause on putting
Fair.
JP at league average right now.
Fair. Fair. Fair.
All right. The next position group is third base. And what I've got here is Donnie Barrels, Donovan Solano, and Austin Shinton.
This one's a tough one for me because yeah, Solano has done great the last couple of years at a bevy number of places, right? But it all comes down to can he hit at T-Mobile Park? And defense could be there, sure. But Austin Shenton, I don't know how many at bats he's gonna get. how many times he's going to be in the field. He's a high strikeout guy. This is for me, I believe, could be below league average.
I think is below league average because even though Donovan Solano has hit well, he played 95-ish games last year
Yeah.
and he was a 1 WAR player. Josh Rojas was 3.4 WAR player. So looking at that, Shenton, I don't know if I brought this up before, but it might be my favorite Mariners story. Well, it's not even really a story, but it's a little fun fact that I've been thinking about recently.
Sure.
Mariners acquire Diego Castillo for JT Chargois and Austin Shenton. Mariners reacquire JT Chargois at the trade deadline last year to help bolster their playoff push. Austin Shenton gets DFA'd by the Rays. The Mariners claim him and DFA JT Chargois.
Yeah.
It's just so weird that it's like that one trade, how intertwined they are in that way, right?
Yeah.
But that story aside, yeah, I think they're going to be below league average.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
All right. So across the infield, we've got so just to break it down before we go into the outfield. And like I said, we're not doing a DH because I think there's going to be a lot of DH at bats split up solely due to matchups, right?
I mean, like
Oh,
if Raleigh gets a rest day, it's going to be Haniger, most
well,
likely.
well,
Like,
I don't know if he's on the team. We haven't finished outfield yet. Stop spoiling leads. But I'm trying to recap the rest of it. We've got starting pitchers above league average, relief pitchers above league average, catcher above league average, first base at league average, then second, short, and third below league average. Let's go to our outfielders.
oh,
In the outfield, we have Victor Robles, Julio Rodriguez, Randy Arozarena, Mitch Haniger, and Dominic Canzone makes an appearance back on this team for us to start off the year.
wild that we're throwing Dom Canzone in a outfield that's kind of loaded and Mitch Haniger handcuffed, huh?
The only reason we were doing this is because when you looked at this team, if we went with another player in this spot, this was our heaviest. We talked about Tyler Locklear, we talked about Canzone, and we also talked about a wild card relief pitcher. Like we threw out some names. You never know. Could be a non major league invite to camp guy too.
Yeah.
But with Cal, with Luke, and being your only everyday players that bat from the left side, primarily with Cal being a switch hitter, and then you throw in Shenton. Oh, I forgot Crawford, JP Crawford, and I believe Shenton's a lefty. So,
Yes.
and Shenton's going to play sparingly. So having another guy, and you talked about this early in the offseason. You said, I want to see more lefties on this team. I want them to go out in free agency and I want them to sign a power hitting lefty that could do this. And I said, you don't need a free agent power hitting lefty. You
I mean,
have Dom Canzone at home.
you do, but
He
it's
hits
just
moonbeams. He
it's
cannot hit a left hander.
it's also tough, right? Because he is an outfielder, right? When you have the starting three of Rosarena, Julio, and Victor Robles, there's really not much play for other players,
I
right?
the other thing is with Dom, I would prefer him to get DH at bats
Sure.
because I'm not enamored with him defensively.
Not
So,
diving left and right everywhere, but all in all, with this outfield, they above league average.
well, let's finish it out because Haniger, I think we all know the regression. He's going to be another guy that competes for DH spots. But
I don't think he plays in the field either. I just don't.
the other thing is Rosarena going to be just fine. Julio is going to be, I believe, very good this year. And I think that Rosarena is above league average. It's going to really come down to what Robles does. So Robles, before coming over, was atrocious at hitting a
Yeah.
baseball and was this year an anomaly? Was it something that can
Built
be
upon.
replicated, right? This is a guy, this is like one of the rare free agents that once they got to Seattle, their stick came alive, right? So
Yeah.
that brings me pause, but I do think what he brings you defensively, he is your backup and center for Julio. His ferocity on the base paths
Just
is
the motor that he
unmatched.
has.
And I think that a Rosarine, this whole outfield, the starting three, can steal you bases. Two of them can hit for immense power. And these are extra base hit guys, right?
Yeah.
That's where they excel. And with Robles being the outlier there a little bit, and your other guys you're not really counting on to give you meaningful reps in the outfield. Yeah, this is above league average for me.
No, 100%. I
I think if you even if you just had Julio and a Rosarena and insert two more outfielders, it's
sure,
still above
yeah.
league average.
Yeah, and
Because Julio will be within the next 3 years a serious contender for MVP.
yeah, 100%. 100%. And Victor Robles, I'm not worried about it at all. I just think the dude
I'm worried about it at all. I mean, it was special, but you
it
want to know what else
was.
was special? Uh, Same Haggerty.
Yeah, sure.
So yes, you had a longer look at Robles, but even when Robles first came over, same thing with Luke. He wasn't getting consistent playing time. I think in the first month he was here, he had like 7 at bats.
Yeah, and then somebody got hurt and then he played.
Julio got hurt.
Yeah. So with consistent play time, it's 100% above league average. Randy is gonna have an unreal year for us, having 162 under his belt.
We're
So
gonna really be able to enjoy Randy Land, I think, this year
yeah,
because he struggled a little bit right after the trade. Then he got hot, but and you saw bits and pieces of it. But I think he was still trying to get his footing with the new area. So I'm excited to see Randy Land in full effect. I mean,
hell yeah,
when you look at play styles, right, and bravado, drip, swag, whatever you want to call it, right?
yeah.
These three starters might be the coolest out like starting outfield
Just
in
as the
in the
kids say
bigs.
now, aura.
Yeah, no cap. No cap
Yeah,
here.
yeah. I like it.
All right. And it's kind of one of the things that kind of leads us to our next thing. But one thing that I think the Mariners have been able to do is form a pretty tight knit group. And when they do make additions to the team, those guys seem to get
Integrated pretty quick.
extremely well. And I just think the vibes are super good in that
I
clubhouse.
I think I think the vibes are back.
Yeah, and I know last year we were talking about Polanco being a proven leader, Haniger coming back. I think that this one you got a healthy JP that's got something to prove. I think with Luke Rayleigh, you're sitting there looking at a guy that just embodies everything you want a professional athlete to be,
Yeah,
right? Just the want to do it. You look at Ryan Bliss trying to make a name for himself, Timo coming off of a gold glove, third base. Don't get me started because I don't want to go back there again. Your starting pitchers are going to be great. Your relievers are going to be feeding off each other and competing for high leverage situations. And Cal Raleigh is going to be a first time All Star this year. So when you couple that all together, there's a lot to like. And I think that there's going to be a lot of the team as a whole that kind of helped move this
yes.
along. I think that Dane Wilson showed promising signs. I think having Edgar still around this team
And getting
is going
a
to help.
proven
I can't,
hitting coach with Kevin Seisler.
I mean, and then getting Randy Johnson as the team photographer and then John Olerud as the equipment guy. I think that team, that's going to ratchet this up even more. You didn't think that John Olerud equipment guy thing was coming, right? Because I thought of that right now.
Oh God, that was funny.
Kane,
Oh crap.
as we sit here today, are the Mariners playoff team.
Uh Yeah, I believe they are. Barring no weird crap this year, I think they should have the division in hand. Um, if not, should be a solid wild card team. Um, but
I think that their path is the division because when you look around the league right now, you've got in the Central three very solid teams in the Tigers, the Guardians, and the Royals are a younger up and coming team. In the East, you've got New York, Boston, and Baltimore that are going to be tough. And when you look in division, I think out of those teams, especially with the moves that have been made for both of these, and more importantly, some key losses, in my opinion, for both of these teams, is the Rangers and the Astros, right? Yeah, the A's are going out and signing some players, but the A's aren't going to be there. The Angels are just going to angel. Let's be real. But when you look at the Astros, Verlander's not there anymore. Kyle Tucker's not there anymore. Alex Bregman's not going to be there anymore. It's not like Jose Altuve is getting any younger.
right, and
And
they just
yes,
added
they
Christian Walker.
they signed Christian Walker, but it's been about it, right? And you lose oh no, they got Isak Paredes, so they're out. Like, but that cost you Kyle Tucker. Isak Paredes is a good player. He's not Kyle Tucker.
But he's perfect for the Crawford boxes.
So when you look at that, the other thing is, I think that the Mariners actually, on their higher end starters, they've actually hit them pretty well at home and
Yes.
on the road. They kind of get stymied by their lesser guys in the rotation. But
Mm.
then when you look at Texas, Texas took a step back last year, like we anticipated. Not everyone had career years, but them trading off Nathaniel Lowe for nothing,
Yep.
and Scherzer's still a free agent. They've re-signed some of
They
their
might get
guys.
a full year of DeGrom. Who knows?
But yeah, I don't love their starting staff. Their bullpen was not good last year. And you saw a step back to the mean for a lot of their guys, like Adolis Garcia, that had a career year. Simeon had a career year. Who's also a great guy. Corey Seager was like balls out all year. And Jonah Heim was out of nowhere the best catcher in baseball. All those guys step back, except for I would argue Marcus Simeon. You had Corey Seager get hurt. You had
Yeah.
Young get hurt. Yeah, they've got some good pieces, but I don't think that either one of those lineups, as they would currently be constructed, would that you would put above the Mariners pitching
Yeah.
staff. Obviously, the Mariners pitching staff as a whole is probably near 1 of 1. And I think that with what they can put out offensively, having a full off season with Edgar, with Dan, with this group, I can see some of those bats continue to trend forward more. And you already know what you're going to get out of that starting staff. So I think
Yeah.
that where they sit in division, I think this is as good a year of any to pencil them in as the AL West champs.
Yeah. I agree with that. So
So you were
let's
mad that the Mariners didn't make any moves, and then they make
hey,
one move, and you say they're a playoff team. What does Jerry need to do?
we still need
He needs to do more.
we still need that, coach. We still need that.
We do. And we also need you to follow us on social media. You can
Got
find
him.
your boy Coach Red on X at the Real Coach Red, on Instagram at the Real underscore Coach Red, TikTok at the Real Coach Red. Also find the show over on YouTube. Search Kicking It with Coach Red. Like, subscribe, hit the bell notifications, and leave a comment or two. Kane, where you at?
Find me over on Twitter, Kane2406, TikTok, Kane0624. Also follow the show's socials over on Twitter and Instagram at Coach Red Pod. Follow us. Do it, freaking do it.
And as always, stay fresh.
Stay fresh, peeps.
Peace.